What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with yours, Kwame Fisher Jones. As always, I am him. Once again, I'm joined by my man Everett Terry Jr., aka Sports Talk Terry. Jumping back into the NBA. So we talked Clay, and I'm gonna say it anyway. Just to show you how bad things are getting and going. Buddy Hield is now called Splash Buddy.
Come on,
That's
man.
that's a
Pause.
nickname that they're giving him on air
No
through the
Diddy. We're
yeah.
not calling no grown man a splash buddy. That
We're
sounds
just gonna act
so.
like what Clay did, he didn't do. All right, LeBron James. For those of you who have been under a rock, or just to recap, LeBron James' son, LeBron James Jr., was drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers at 55 in the second round. Congratulations to him. You know, it's quite the feat to be drafted to an NBA team. It's quite the accomplishment. And whether it's nepotism or not, and we all know nepotism is alive and well in a lot of other cultures, for him to still be in position to take advantage of that, it's tremendous. And I wish him nothing but the best. My
Especially after
question for
averaging
you is this.
2 points a game.
I well, no, we can discuss that. We can discuss that. I actually don't know what he'll be just yet.
Agree.
I've stayed away from it. Like there was a time when you could fairly assess what a college player was. But now the way they're coached, like John Calipari coaches his guys for the NBA. Therefore, his college statistics of late have suffered. They haven't been. Kentucky wasn't a great NCAA tournament team, but their players traditionally did well in the NBA, partly because that was the system, that was the style that he coached. So it's hard for me to say, to bring that in, it's hard for me to say what Bronny James will or will not be. What I can say, what I do know about the young man is this. He's grew up under a microscope, excuse me. If he's gotten in trouble, it's never made it out publicly. So he hasn't done anything catastrophic that can't be, that can't be ignored. And to that end, he's got genes. Whether you want to acknowledge that or not, he's got pedigree. And one of those things that he has is a good head on his shoulders. Oh, hold on. Just cramped up. Hold on. Welcome back. So, yeah, no, I was just saying about LeBron. So, the situation, like I just didn't cramp up my whole left side of the body. I'm going to shake that off. The situation
Sorry
with
about that.
Bronny is he's got a good head on his shoulders. And that's, he knows the game. He's got the instincts for the game. So you just got to give him time and see how it goes. So I don't know if he's going to be a good player. I get the impression, though, you have a feeling that he's not going to be.
I'm just going to ask one question.
Okay.
Skip the whole nepotism. Take it
Okay.
all off the table. I'm going to table it to say this. You tell me the last time a 55th overall pick, number one, garnered this much attention and got a 4-year guaranteed contract.
Well, that's Rich Paul.
No. When's the last time a 55th overall pick got a 4-year
they just had a second
contract?
round pick. They just had a second round pick get a guaranteed contract. No,
that ain't what I asked you. I said a 4-year guaranteed contract. Name me the last time a 55th overall pick did that. Take all the time you need.
Well, let me just say this. I don't know. Let me answer your question. I don't think it's happened.
Never.
But I can tell you that there have been second round picks to get guaranteed contracts. A lot of agents, and Clutch is one of them. They don't do the two-way contracts. Now, I'm not going to bore people with the details to why they don't, but they don't do two-way contracts. So in order for a team, if they draft a Clutch client in the second round, they know they have to give them at least a 3-year guaranteed deal, or they're not going to draft that player. So that's something that Rich Paul says. That's something Rich Paul uses as a way to get players. You know what I mean? Because the first round picks are great, but he's got a lot of second round pick guys on his roster. So that's something that he uses to influence their decision. That look, you come with me and you go in the second round, you get a guaranteed deal. That's not a two-way deal. Let me just say this.
I'm gonna research that.
Well, you can research it all you want. You do that. When you do, you come back and you say, "Damn, you were right." Cramp aside, I know what I'm talking about. But this draft was a very bad draft. The first overall pick.
It was Kwame Brown level.
No, it was worse than Kwame Brown. The first because Kwame Brown and Tyson Chandler. Tyson Chandler was a pretty good player. There was a guy that went first overall to Atlanta that averaged 10 points. 10 points. 10 points.
I know. Most people ain't know who dude was. They were like, who? Nobody was talking about him pre-draft. This wasn't Wemby Mania where they were talking about him a whole season before he got here.
Biryani type bad. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it was again, it was one of those drafts where this was the best year in the history of life for Bronny to come out. Any other draft for talent
Exactly.
doesn't
And
get
maybe
drafted.
he doesn't make it to 55. Here's the thing about that. Maybe he doesn't make it to 55 if he goes anywhere other than Los Angeles. We know that they were telling teams not to draft, and we know this to be true and
Yeah, but
self-evident.
it had nothing to do with Bronny. He averaged 2 points, man, and had a catastrophic injury that almost killed him a year before. He was only
Yeah.
looking at getting drafted because his dad was opting out, and teams knew if they got Bronny, they could leverage that to get LeBron to sign.
No, from what I read, Minnesota was really interested in him, which makes sense because they view Bronny as kind of a combo lead guard type player,
Yeah,
and Mike Conley's on the back end. And again, he
and
seems to be a
athletic
really good.
Markel Fultz.
What about Markel Fultz?
He's an athletic Markel
No,
Fultz.
no,
That's what they call
Markel.
him.
No, he's not Markel Fultz. He's a much better basketball player than Markel. I'm not gonna. No, he's a much
Markel
better
Fultz
player.
will win
Markel Fultz
overall.
won't be in the league, and
When he had a great year last year, he's definitely
he's
going to be in the
a
league,
free agent right now.
and he will get scooped up, and he will be on somebody's
Win,
roster as a
win,
starter or fringe
win,
back.
win, win, win.
Free agency just started. Give him some time to pick who he
Okay,
wants.
10 to get you 20. He's not in the league next year unless a team gets hurt, unless a catastrophic injury happens to a guard player.
I'll take 10 to 20. I'll give you
Okay,
20 to 10 that he does.
No, I no. Marco
He
Fultz
will
is a
absolutely listen.
Marco
There's
Fultz is
no
a
circumstance where
bad
Markel Fultz
basketball
is
player, man.
not in the NBA next year. There's none. There's too many bad
Marco
guards
Fultz
out here
is
for
a
Markel Fultz to not have a job.
bad basketball player. That now, there's a team that may get hurt. There may be a guy that has a good relationship with his agent, and they decide to bring him in. But I'm telling you that nobody is going to go out and sign him to a free agent deal like, oh, we got Markel Fultz. It's
Okay.
not going to happen.
We'll
Not
circle
going to
this
happen.
conversation and check back in 3 weeks.
All right. Going back to Bronny James. But no, so Minnesota kicked the tires on him. And, I think he would have, but we'll deal with the facts of where he is now. I'm happy for him. I think it's awful that JJ Redick is going to be his coach. We'll get to that in a
Agree.
second. But I do think that it's great that he gets to be with his father. And
Agree.
I tip my hat off to LeBron James in this because
Agree.
LeBron, and we disagree here, but to me, LeBron could have went to Philly. He could have went to New York. He could have gone, and I'll even say Dallas, and been in the NBA Finals next year, and possibly been in line to win an NBA title. He could have gone to Miami and been in position to win an NBA title. And if he wins another title, there's no debate about who the most influential player on the court is. Just get out of here. There's no debate. To me, it shouldn't be a debate now, but it is. People take away the big man because they want to put in Jordan. But if he wins a fourth title, but even aside from that, going back, come on, reel it in. He pushed all that to the side and said, I'm willing to take less money if we can add Clay or add somebody. I'm not taking less money to add Markel Fultz, but I'll take less money to add a Klay Thompson or players of that ilk. And when it didn't happen, he took a guaranteed contract and stayed in Los Angeles. Not because Los Angeles is poised to run the title, not because JJ Redick's going to be a good head coach, but because his son is going
Because
to
of
be
his
there
son.
and
Yeah.
he wants to play with his son. And that to me,
It's
despite his
dope.
wife telling him no, despite his son telling him no, he said, damn it, this is what I want to do. I want to be there for him. And that to me is like, I'm just blown away by that, man.
Real quick on that. And because I've had this debate with people, I don't know, for the last week and a half. As a father with a son, you're a father with sons. There's nothing better in the world than helping your son be the best version of himself. He knew that Bronny stats alone, if LeBron James never existed, wouldn't have gotten him into the NBA. But he utilized his influence. And in that argument, I'll give you most influential player ever.
The young man was a 3-star recruit, right? He was a 3-4-star high school.
There are 5-star recruits that didn't even make the NBA draft. Bro, like Edwards, who came out of Imhotep in Philly, who signed with the Sixers, who was top tier draft class going into the draft, but played in Kentucky, didn't get enough minutes. But we'll come back to that.
He's just better
He
than a
utilized.
2-point game scorer, though. Like, we can't just say that. If you watch him on tape, he's better. And he had a
I'm not arguing that he didn't have talent,
terrifying
but
injury, man.
I'm not arguing that. So you know what your counter argument is then? Stay another year, show people you're healthy and that you can ball.
Now the coach left. The coach left.
Half the people that were taking his minutes also left, which meant he had an opportunity to carve his own name and build his own legacy out of the school he chose. He could have done that. He chose to come into the draft.
Go ahead.
That's neither here nor there. Point I'm making is he came into the league, and I think it's amazingly dope that as a father, and call it what you want, as a Black father, that he showed the world I can utilize my influence for nepotism to get my son a job. No different than CEOs get their sons jobs as head of some marketing group when the son never comes to work. Or, hey, I got my buddy in over here at this job because I'm head of this. People do it every day. And I think it's dope that he utilized it to do it and got the whole world to watch it. You say what you want, but you can't say that Bronny's a bad kid. You can't say LeBron's not a good father. You can't say that if LeBron James stops playing basketball tomorrow, he has cemented his legacy as one of literally the most high character guys in the history of basketball for a superstar. And you can't take that from him. I don't even argue that.
Do you agree that he sacrificed his legacy for this?
No, because I think it added to his legacy. Because what other NBA player can say, I played basketball with my son in the league? You want to talk pedigree and genes? Michael Jeffrey Jordan had two sons who had significantly better high school and college careers than Bronny, and neither one of them got drafted. And Michael Jordan owned a team and couldn't get his son's drafted. He owned a team and couldn't get his son's drafted.
Kareem got sons too. They all have sons. No, the reason why I said sacrifice his legacy is strictly on the court and strictly for him as a player. He still has enough to give to the game to make it to take a team fringe playoff or fringe conference title contender to an NBA title contender. You know, he goes to Phoenix. They're playing in the NBA Finals. He goes to Dallas. They're playing in the NBA. He goes to Philly. Like, he goes anywhere, and he was in position to go to Philly. He could have gone to Philly. And no one would begrudge him. But the Lakers, and we could just enter this too. The Lakers hired a dude. What would LeBron James have been like if he stayed with Eric Spoelstra? Like, because that's his only sniffing of a great head coach.
I agree.
And I only think Spoelstra's a great head coach because he never gets any real talent. Like, if Spoelstra had talent, you know, do we get the Dallas Mavericks NBA Finals where the Heat were up 2-0 and wound up losing that series? Do we get that Spoelstra? Or do we get a Spoelstra who's able to get guys to play above a level or reach a level that so we don't even know if Spoelstra's that great of a hawk. But like, Kobe had Phil, Mike had Phil, Isaiah had Chuck, Larry had Casey Jones. Like, LeBron's got Frank Vogel and JJ Redick.
Don't forget my man Mike Brown.
Bring that back to you. Magic had Pat. You know what I mean? Larry had KC. Hope had Phil. Shaq had Phil. Kareem had Pat. Like, this dude has Frank Vogel, Mike Brown,
TD had Pop.
Ty Lue.
Ty Lue's a great head coach.
Again, we're saying that based on the fact that he's been able to exceed expectations. Like, none of these dudes delivered. Think about that. LeBron has never had a coach that delivered for him. If he did, and you're going to get mad when I say that, I think Nick Nurse could have been that coach. And I think he knows that too. I look at what Nick Nurse has done, his track record, and not just on the NBA level with Kawhi, because the Raptors weren't a championship team with Kawhi.
I know his G League record. I know. You're going to go to his G League record. You're going to go to his G League record.
His G League record, but even he's won a title everywhere he's gone. 10 titles in the league I never heard of. Like every professional level, whether it's been the NBA, but any professional level where there was a paycheck for these guys, he's managed to. And look, I don't want to debate Nick Nurse. My point is just that the table was set for him in Philly, and they had to settle for Paul George because he said, "Nah, Junior means more to me." That's
why I respect it.
That's wow, like wow. And Junior could be the greatest kid in the world, but he still don't cut the grass when he's supposed to. You know what I
True.
mean? He's still sneaking girls in when he's not supposed to. He still rolls his eyes at his mom. Like, he's still a teenager. This is the point I'm trying to make. So there are moments when you be like, God, I can't wait for this dude to get out. You know what I mean? What's the line on Friday? I want to walk around the house naked with your mother again. Like, so he has those moments in the same, nah, I'm gonna put that on hold and be with my son. To me, is the ultimate sacrifice. And and I definitely think he sacrificed his legacy for it. Because Philly, there is no, well, let's transition to that. Unless I'll give you the floor on LeBron, and I want to transition to Philly and the Eastern Conference.
Well, I don't think that it's that he sacrificed his legacy because he still does have a top 10 player in Anthony Davis on his roster. Anthony Davis is a
JJ
top 10
Redick's the
player.
coach.
I'm not arguing that, but players have won with terrible coaches more than once in the history
LeBron
of the NBA.
has.
Huh?
And LeBron there it has. Is. Who else?
And there
it
is.
Who else has won with JJ Redick? JJ Redick type coach.
We're not arguing that JJ. It's not about JJ Redick. What I'm saying to you is there's plenty of coaches plenty of players in the NBA who've won without Hall of Fame coaches. All I am saying to you is that LeBron didn't necessarily sacrifice legacy because the Lakers won a title with he and Anthony Davis as the core of their roster. He still has Anthony Davis and him at the core of the roster, although 39-year-old LeBron isn't 34, 35, 36-year-old LeBron.
He's
so
40.
The key, but the point I'm making to you is he doesn't have to be 28, 29, 30 points per game. What they need is a better supporting cast around him, and that's where the front office has to do better. I will argue that I love the fact that they took Dalton Connect. I love the kid coming out of Tennessee. I love his game. He is a poor man's Cooper Flag. He is. You will see it. You remember I said it to you. He is a poor man's Cooper Flag. He has the ability to catch and shoot. He can drive and attack the rim. He's fearless. He doesn't care about getting the ball. He can pick spots and hit shots. That's what you need out of a fourth option. All right. I'm glad you're blah, blah, blah me. But what I'm saying to you is that was for where they drafted, you couldn't have gotten a better pick. Now, what they do with the rest of the roster to build out the team, they really, and LeBron taking that 1.6 million less opened up the MLE for them. So who they end up with the MLE as a result is going to matter. That's where they can't miss. They hit that, they will be very competitive in the West as long as LeBron doesn't take a groin injury and miss 2 months. Or Anthony Davis stubs his toe.
As the resident 40-year-old on the show here, I can tell you, to you, it's a groin 40. Injury.
What do you mean?
It's a groin, a back, and a glute. Like I said, as the resident 40-year-old on the show, to you, it's a groin injury. To me, a groin injury manifests into a lower back, a hamstring, and a glute. I'm off the grid for a week.
He takes care of his body far better than every 40-year-old on the planet.
Still 40. Still 40.
I'm arguing that. But because he takes better care of his body and hey, he doesn't eat the same food we eat, and he keeps himself in tip-top shape.
And he still pees 6 times in the middle of the night.
That's true. But what I'm saying is, as long as they have a good roster around him, he doesn't have to carry the load. He can kind of step back and kind of let AD do the heavy lifting, and they surround him with the right pieces because LeBron is the best two options in basketball.
But they got JJ Redick as their head coach, man. Is he going to walk into the huddle and say, and I know it's cliche, but say, LeBron, who's open? Anthony Davis. LeBron, who's open? Anthony Davis. Well, give him the damn ball. Like, is he going to do that? He's not.
Listen, they did a podcast together. I know JJ Redick got this job because of the podcast or whatever their relationship is.
No, I want to say he got it because of the podcast because I don't care why he got it. And you know what? That's the last time I cut you off. I'm sorry. Just let me finish this note. I don't care why he got the job. I don't care how he got the job. He's not going to be good at this job because he's not going to be able to reach Cam Reddish. He's not going to be able to reach Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, and Anthony Davis. He's not going to. They're going to look at him like he owes them money. Floor is yours.
You know what's great, though? They also went and got Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks, two coaches who are very good at reaching those players. And just like you said, Sam Cassell is the engine behind Joe Mazzulla. Those guys will be the engine behind JJ. JJ's just the face. But those two guys will be the guys that'll do the work with the Cam Reddish. They'll do the work with the Austin Reeves. They'll get them to buy in. Because, listen, when Russell Westbrook was at his peak, who was his head coach? Scott Brooks. When you saw the absolute best. Okay. But when you saw peak and prime versions of guys in Indiana and in Portland, it was behind Nate McMillan. So what I'm saying to you is those assistant coaches are going to be huge. That's one thing Darvin Ham didn't have a lot of, and that's why he failed. He didn't have top tier assistant coaches who could fill in the gaps where he made mistakes or say, hey, coach, you know what? Let's not go that route right now. He had a bunch
Phil
of
Handy's not a good head coach.
Tell me what team Phil Handy's coached to an NBA title.
Cleveland
Tell me.
Cavaliers.
No. Head coach. He ain't head coach nobody in the league.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking head coaches who become assistants. Quality head coaches.
All right. Well,
and so what I'm saying is the guys that he has around him are pedigree resume coaches. And the value in having them is that if it falls apart, you got a guy right there in-house. If you fire him, that you can elevate right into that position. The same way Joe Mazzulla elevated when Ime Udoka got. So you have the right assistant under you who can step in case the JJ Redick experiment fails 45 games into the season. You've got pedigree coaches like a Nate McMillan, like a Scott Brooks, who can still maximize and utilize their skill to get the most out of this team. Who the rest of the roster comes out to is going to depend how far they go, as well as health. AD has to play 75 games to be healthy in the playoffs. Bron's got
some Darvin Ham got him to do.
But LeBron can't miss too much. He can't. He's got to play 70 games. If he plays 70 games with a decent roster, the Lakers will be a 6 seed. And depending on matchup, they can get out of the first round. Matchup dependent. I think there's certain teams they still can't beat. Like when they said, oh, we want Denver. No, you didn't. You wanted OKC. What you should have done is lost and beat up on the kids who weren't ready for the moment. But that's okay. It was a learning lesson.
They would have lost OKC too.
Stop it. Put your pride. They had no answer for AD. He would have averaged 40 and 25 on them. They didn't have any.
Go ahead.
Listen. Jokic did what he wanted to AD, okay? We know that no matter how athletic Anthony Davis is, he's 100 pounds lighter than Nikola Jokic, who don't got to jump off the ground but can still get a bucket. You needed a matchup that favored you. Chet Holmgren is practically their center, and he's 7 foot 190, okay? 80 is bigger than him. He could have done what he wanted. And the point I'm making is styles make fights. Matchups matter in the playoffs. Had the Lakers played OKC, they would have gotten out of that round. But they didn't. It's neither here nor there. But I'm telling you that if they get a good matchup, depending on how things shake with the league and health, they can get out of the first round. You never know how balls bounce. Guys who you think are going to get there lose every day. You know, nobody expected the Bucks to go down the way they did. Next thing you know, the East was wide open for the Sixers, and then they went down. So now all of a sudden, it's who's in the conference finals. The same thing can happen in the West. So all I'm saying is don't be surprised if you see a move at the deadline if the Lakers are in the mix. Don't be surprised if the Lakers get a good matchup in the playoffs and get past the first round, get to the second round. And if they got a favorable matchup, now you're talking Western Conference Finals where LeBron has a chance to shine. Who knows where Bronny will be by then? He might be a back of the rotation guy who comes in and gives you 10, 12 minutes off the bench. You never know. You got to see how he develops in the G League. But all is not lost by this. They didn't have a bad draft. They locked up the second best player that they could get out of the draft for their team. And all things point towards them having a productive year if everything is good in their health, regardless as to how good or bad JJ Redick is because of his assistant coaches.
People like JJ Redick often believe they're the smartest person in the room.
I agree. He is a bit of a bleep.
Well, I don't know him personally, but you know, through his podcast and through his work, he often believes he's the smartest person in the room.
He's a bleep.
And that person doesn't take kindly to people, A, being smarter than him, and B, people garnering more respect than him, which will happen with Nate McMillan.
Absolutely.
Not so much Scotty Brooks, but Nate McMillan. Moving the conversation along, though, I don't believe the Lakers are in position to contend in the Western Conference because we had a changing of the guard, if you will, with Oklahoma City and Minnesota being formidable teams. Those teams are not flash in the pan teams. They're built to be good for a long time. Phoenix is no longer a viable threat. Golden State is no longer a viable threat.
Agree.
And making the decision to stay with the Lakers kind of says, I'm going to finish out my career giving the best effort I can.
Might get Bryce in 2 years. Never know about life.
You know what? And maybe they get the next great whomever. Bottom line is at that point, LeBron will be someplace resting with his feet up. And his career will be over. And that's the issue. We got 10 minutes left. You good for another segment, or you wanna
Man, let's
go?
go. No,
All right.
let's do it.
So I'm gonna wrap this one up. Then I can edit the end out. That's it for this episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk. We're gonna come right back and we're gonna talk Sixers, Knicks, and I want to talk Cleveland Cavaliers and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell got an extension, and it's real quick. You know what? Scratch that. We got 4 minutes. We got a few minutes. I want to get your opinions on something. Lil Birdie told me that Kevin Durant wants out of Phoenix, and it's been reported that Phoenix Matt Ishabal came out and said they're not going to get rid of him. I don't believe Kevin Durant's the problem in Phoenix. I don't believe they have a problem. I just think they have a misevaluation, and his name is Devin Booker. At what point, okay, where do you view Devin Booker in the hierarchy of the NBA?
He's top 10, top 12 player.
Interesting. I don't think he's a top 15 player at all. I don't think he's a top 15 player.
You can't name me 14 people better than him. You can't name me 14.
I can, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. Would you say he's better than Shea Gill?
No.
Would you say he's better than Anthony Edwards?
No. He's not above them on my list anyway.
Okay. Would you say he's better than, let's say, Anthony Davis?
No.
Would you say he's better than Jaylen Brown? I'm giving you guys that are outside of the top 10.
Yes.
I'm giving you guys that are outside of the top 10.
Yes.
So if you're the Boston Celtics and I offered you Jaylen Brown, or I offered you Jaylen Brown for Devin Booker, you'd make that deal.
Absolutely. I don't lose a second sleep doing it.
I wouldn't. Okay. So I wouldn't. I look at Devin Booker as a fringe top 15, top 20 player in the right situation. When the Phoenix Suns are at their worst, Devin Booker has the ball in his hands. When the Phoenix Suns were a lottery team drafting first overall, their best player and lead player was Devin Booker. It wasn't until they got other pieces that they became a viable championship threat. Those other pieces being Chris Paul, Mikal Bridges. When Chris Paul and Mikal Bridges left, they went back to a, quote, underachieving team. And they only underachieved because a lot of people thought they were better than they were. Bradley Beal's not in this conversation. To me, if Devin Booker is a top 15 player, you're in the second round of the playoffs every year, and you're one player away, a top 25 player away from being in the conference finals.
Is Steph Curry a top 15 player?
Right now? No.
Is Steph Curry a top 15 player?
Right now, no.
All right. We can't talk anymore. Okay, let's go to something else.
No, I don't. I think he's a tremendous player, but no, I don't.
15 player in the association right now?
I think if you see, when you say top 15, those are guys that if you put on a roster, you send, like if you were to send Steph Curry to Miami, right? They're in the conference finals.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Absolutely.
I think health is an issue. Your audio went bad. I think with Steph Curry, and this conversation is taking a turn. Let me bring it back to Devin Booker. Let's say he's arguably a top 15 player. I think you would agree he's top 15. Okay. So let's say he's arguably a top 15 player. Your audio's still bad. I don't believe he's a guy that the Phoenix Suns can build a team around. And to, on top of that, miscalculate his position. He's not a point guard. He's a shooting guard. So by making him a lead guard, you're then forcing him to play a position that's not his best position. And even at his best position, he's not that influential on a game. So I don't think Kevin Durant's the problem, meaning you can move Kevin Durant and get a better team. You can move Kevin Durant. I'm not saying you trade him to Minnesota, but you can get a Mike Conley. You can such Devin Booker back to a shooting guard. Now you're a better team and better suited to compete in the Western Conference. What say you?
I actually agree with that. I think that the problem isn't that he's not a good guard. I think that the Phoenix Suns don't know how to properly coach and utilize his best skill set. So here's the problem. He's not a point guard. He is a combo guard, but he's a ball-dominant combo guard. He's not a catch-and-shoot, stand on the perimeter Klay Thompson. He's more of a Donovan Mitchell. So he needs the ball in his hands to be the most effective version of himself. The problem with that is that the team they built around him, they wanted him to be more of a Russell Westbrook who could get his own bucket but still find guys. That's not his strength. He turned the ball over too much, and he's better when he focuses on getting his own bucket. So you know who's a good comp to that? Kyrie. Kyrie is a guy who, even though he is a point guard, is more of a lead guard. He's more of a guy that's going to get the bucket, and if the guy's open, he's going to make the basketball play and find him. But he's never going to average 10 assists a game because that's not what his game is. His game is, I'm a walking bucket. I can get my bucket when I want it, but I can't necessarily go out and get my teammates 10 buckets off my passes. I have the ability, but that's not what I'm going to do in the game. That's Devin Booker. Devin Booker has the ability, but it's not his game. So where the Suns went wrong is they didn't bring in a guy who could do what would allow him to be the best version of himself. So they need Rajon Rondo-esque type guard who's going to put Booker in positions that he can get easy looks, get baskets, but still be effective when he needs to be, but doesn't need to be ball dominant to still have an impact on the game. And Chris Paul supposed to be that guy, but Chris Paul's story is he always gets hurt. Now, he's a guy who plays like a 40-year-old that gets hurt getting up in the morning and pulls a hamstring because he is forever hurt in the playoffs.
Didn't the Sixers just draft a guy from Duke that was a point guard? McCain?
Jared McClain. Yeah, the TikTok kid with the painted nails.
He's a point guard, though, right? He's a lead guard, right? Defensive
he's
shooting.
A guard. Yeah, they just call him guards in Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, no, they call them guards because people don't know how to identify a point guard. If you're not shooting, they don't think you're valuable. You don't think you're valuable.
But he's a sharpshooter. He was shooting 40%.
So the reason why I bring that up is because there were guys out there in the draft, but you have to be in position to draft them. And when you're invested in a guy like Bradley Beal, you miscalculate. It was something like we talked about in a previous show.
They gave him all those picks.
Not only did they give all these picks, they went with a guy who they assumed those numbers would transfer over instead of looking at his style of play. And Devin Booker doesn't play well with the ball.
He and Devin Booker play literally the same type of basketball. They're ball dominant guards who don't play well with others.
It's funny you say that because Bradley Beal's team are never good. And Devin Booker's teams, when it's just Devin Booker, are never good. But you would argue you wouldn't argue Bradley Beal's a top 15 player.
No, he's not.
So that's my point. They're the same player. They're the exact same player.
But Bradley Beal not being top 15 has to do more with the fact that he's inconsistent and he stays hurt. Devin Booker puts up numbers at a clip and is considerably more healthy. He's also younger than Bradley
I'd have to look at the numbers, but I don't think they're far behind. I think what helped Devin Booker is the fact that we saw Devin Booker playing in the NBA Finals. Because I was a huge – and I'll give you a backdrop. Joel Embiid's contract was coming up. In 4 years, he had only played like 2 seasons. And the Phoenix Suns had the number 1 pick on the draft, and Devin Booker had just scored 70 points against the Boston Celtics. I said I'd rather them trade Joel Embiid to Phoenix, take Ayton or Luka and Devin Booker, because the Phoenix Suns, Robert Sarver, did not want to sign Devin Booker to a max deal. He was not trying to do it. So I've been on the Devin Booker train for a minute. I've followed his career. I've seen him regress. What happens is guys get to a point in bad situations when they're put in whatever the situation is, a bad team, bad position, bad coaching, and then their skills kind of level off. And they still put up numbers, but the numbers don't impact the game. And that's what's happened with Devin Booker. And I'm watching Kevin Durant, who the world tried telling us Kevin Durant was the best player in the NBA. He was the second best player in the NBA. He was better than LeBron. And time has proven that was a lie. So now the whole world is crashing on Kevin Durant. And he's just been the same dude he's been. His game hasn't changed much. He's the same guy. He's still the same guy. Just not that guy.
Crazy. It's crazy that he puts up 20. He consistently will put up 25 to 28 points per game, and people talk of him as an afterthought. It's crazy. Yeah. And he's still one of the most, in terms of true shooting percentage, one of the most efficient shooters in the history of the game.
He doesn't shoot threes. And that
doesn't have to.
And that's why they're killing him, because everybody feels betrayed because he hasn't been able to carry the nets with the Suns, but that's not his game. Like, he's another guy, and
he's a 1A/1B guy, and everybody wants him to be the 1A.
I don't even think he was 1B. We fought about this when we first met. I always felt Russell Westbrook was the best player in Oklahoma City, and
Russell Westbrook was missing hitting the side of his house, standing on the side of his house. Like, he could attack the basket, yes, but Russell Westbrook can't shoot. The name of basketball is shoot the ball. He can't shoot.
But Russ would give